Howdy, everyone, and welcome back to the episode this week of Brand New Gig. I know it's a bit untraditional, but this is our first playoff game in a while, so everything feels a bit untraditional right now. So, with that being said, I have the honor of introducing our guest for today, who you probably informally have seen all over your Twitter feed, maybe doing some film breakdown or giving you some behind the scenes insight. But more formally, he is currently a beat reporter for The Statesman, and he is also a Heisman voter. So we may have to dig into that a little bit more down the road today. But let me introduce you to our guest today, Tony Catalina. Tony, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Avery. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining. We are on the eve of our very first playoff appearance ever, and thankfully it is at the one and only Kyle Field, where we will be hosting the Miami Hurricanes. We typically start off with our Off the Ledge segment, but we already did that on Tuesday, so hopefully none of you are closer to the ledge than you were on Tuesday. And if that happens to be the case, we will hopefully shove you off of it a little bit. We are going to try to offer some insight to make you feel a little bit at ease. But again, we haven't been here before, so who knows what this Saturday could look like. So with that being said, I think the first thing we're going to jump into is just touch on the injury report. I had written down stuff earlier, and then it changed because they update every night. So as far as we can tell, Scooby and Bryce are both off of the list. So they should be playing. And then their best defensive back, Keontae Scott, is still listed as questionable, and then we have Le'Veon Moss listed as questionable. Or I think Keontae is probable, and then Le'Veon is questionable. So we got our two guys back. So how does that affect our game plan and how we approach the situation? And then two, what do those guys on both sides of the ball, if both teams were to get those guys back, how does that affect the game?
Yeah, I think Keontae for Miami, their cornerback Scott is a really good player, right? He's somebody who's really sticky in coverage, and when he was playing at a really high level. So I know people in Miami are really excited about the idea to get him back, and so that's just another challenge for A&M in this offense. But for A&M, you're getting healthy at the right time, right? For Le'Veon Moss to be questionable, I was out there on Tuesday during practice, and he looked himself. Like, there really didn't look like there's any limitations. Obviously, they're gonna play it smart and do the right thing with him, but it looks like there's a real good chance that he'll be out there and be able to play. So that's encouraging. Now, to have Bryce Anderson and Scooby Williams off of the injury report altogether is obviously a really good sign. Two guys who came to the season as starters, and to get Dalton Brooks to play well, and to have some pieces in the linebacker room to play well. They've been able to kind of continue the progress there at those positions, but adding that depth is only going to help. And A&M's in a really, really good spot heading into this playoff game.
Yeah, and I think the concern over the past few weeks, it was big at the beginning of the year, kind of fell off midseason, and is coming back now, that we addressed on Tuesday, was our run defense. And I think we'll break down that more later. But having Scooby back is huge for those run fits. I know that's been an issue all year. Not that we haven't had guys like Damian Sanford step up, but it is big to have a starter back in that role. Again, we don't know how limited they are, but given the circumstances and how long they've had off, we can only assume that Elko knows what's best, and we will see how that looks on Saturday. But because we kind of gave an overview on Tuesday, I'm thinking we do a little bit more of a breakdown today, especially since you're a big film guy. So we're going to kind of look position by position and see, one, where A&M might have the greatest edge, and then two, where we might be at the biggest disadvantage. And I would be remiss if my first position group wouldn't be quarterbacks, because that is the talking point of everyone in the media, which, as it should be. Carson Beck is coming in as a veteran. He has definitely the edge when it comes to experience on Marcel Reed, but there are things that can be spoken to for Marcel that he may have the upper hand on. So kind of break that down and tell me where you see each quarterback standing coming into this game.
Yeah, it's really interesting because they have really similar passing numbers. They both have 25 touchdown passes, both have 10 interceptions. The difference is obviously Carson Beck has been more accurate. He's over 75% completion percentage compared to Marcel's 62. But it's just a really different style of offense where all of Carson Beck's throws are really within the 15 yards. Like they're not really far downfield. It's his lowest yards per catch or yards per attempt here in his career. And from Marcel, they take a lot more shots. They take a lot more intermediate 15, 20-yard passes downfield. So that is to be expected. So when you look at Carson Beck, to me, I see a guy, obviously, like you mentioned, a veteran presence, somebody who's been on a national championship team. He's been in moments like this. So I think he obviously gets the experience edge. But when you're talking about comparable passers, and I feel like they are in a lot of similar ways, the edge to me goes to how dynamic Marcel is. I mean,
Yeah.
his ability to run the football and make plays with his legs is something that Carson Beck just simply can't do. So when you're looking at a full body of work, you look at exactly how these two quarterbacks stack up. You look at Marcel as possibly being able to do a little bit more than Carson can.
Definitely. And a question we've asked since before the season even started is what kind of gameplay do we need out of Marcel to win a game? And obviously that's going to look a bit different depending game to game. But something I've always said is we don't need Heisman Marcel to be at the helm. Even this weekend, this is probably one of the best competitors, if not the best competitor we faced all year. What if you had to give a grade point, where do you need Marcel to be for you to feel comfortable knowing that A&M will win the game?
Yeah, I think if he's anywhere in the B range, right? Just don't
Mhm.
make mistakes, don't turn the football over, just be smart with it. I know he likes to take chances and that's commendable, especially, you're going to pay off on some of those deep shots and when you fit tight window throws, like things like that are going to pay off eventually. But this is a game where if you get Le'Veon Moss back and you lean on a strong defense and finding ways to get that unit to play well, you just kind of got to go out there and not make the big mistake. And so just give me a B effort, and I think Marcel and this A&M team will be fine.
Well, and you're talking about versatility and the desire for those deep shots, and I think that's where we have the biggest edge might be our receiver room and just the dynamic aspect of our offense that we were severely lacking last year. So maybe break that down because they have one of the best true freshmen in the nation in Malachi Tony, but I mean, we've seen Casey Concepcion, Mario Craver is back. I know ABR is still a little injured, dealing with ankle stuff, but just the threat that our receivers pose as compared to maybe what they have in their backfield.
Yeah, they have a deeper. I mean, A&M definitely has a deeper wide receiver room in my opinion. You'd mentioned it, Craver, KC, ABR, and a good thing for Ashton Bethel Roman is he's not listed on the injury report. So I know there was videos of him, struggling a little bit there, but he's not on the injury report. He looks like he's going to be fine, and that's my expectation. But when you talk about Malachi Tony, he is their whole offense. He has more than double the receptions of the next guy, the number wide receiver two there. So I expect him to be a focal point. That's just what their offenses run around. So that leads A&M to be able to have to just find a way to stop him, get a hat on a hat. He's very shifty with the football in his hand. He can make plays in space. So it's going to be one of those where you got to get to him, you got to rally to the ball carrier, and you got to tackle him on the first try. But yeah, I think overall A&M has a lot more weapons that can kind of hit you and kind of hurt you. And obviously Miami has playmakers, but Tony is the one that makes it lead and make it go.
And I think without Le'Veon Moss, especially as you just kind of hinted to, both of our best offensive threats are going to be in that receiver room for both sides of the ball. So this kind of transitions into the secondary and what both teams have on the backside of our defense. And I think we can say we've taken a big step from last year. And Miami's done the same. I think Miami had one of the lowest rated defenses in the country last year, and they got a lot of guys out of the portal. They have a first year defensive coordinator who's made some huge leaps. So we've seen big shifts in the secondary for both of these teams, but Miami is probably going to double KC or put a lot of pressure on him the same way we would do for Malachi Tony. So where are you kind of leaning when it comes to our secondary? What do you expect to see from Mike Elko, man zone? What is our game plan in that
Yeah, I
side of
think
the ball?
you're gonna see a lot of the same stuff that you've been seeing. I think Mike Elko is known for being tricky and getting after the quarterback and being unconventional in his attack of doing that. I think when they stack up, they're a group that doesn't intercept the ball all that well, right? As a group,
Mhm.
A&M is only 4 interceptions all season, but if they stay sticky in coverage, if they keep people in front of them in zone and rally to the football, they'll be fine, right? Like I know when you look at Miami's defense, they got way better ball production. They have two guys with 4+ interceptions, and they find ways to get to the football, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's all good from there, right? Like just getting interceptions is great, but it's how do you play consistently down after down? And I think Mike Elko, with 3 weeks to plan, 3 weeks to get his guys healthy, I think they're going to come out with a nice attack, and I think their defensive secondary is going to play well.
Well, this leads me perfectly into my next point when we're talking about the trenches, because that is what I think everyone knows this game is going to come down to. But we know that Carson Beck can be turnover prone if we get pressure on him. When he has time in the pocket, he is a great quarterback. I mean, as you said, he's played on the biggest stage. So he knows what he's doing back there. But when you get pressure to him because he doesn't have that same dynamic threat that Marcel does, he's going to panic a lot more. So the secondary is not going to be able to make the plays that they need to if our defensive line isn't putting that pressure on him first. So we can kind of go to both sides of the ball, but we can look at both defensive lines because I think this is where the big names are coming up. Cassius Howell versus Ruben Bain. But I mean, both defensive lines are really dynamic. They have guys on the interior too who are making big differences. So kind of break that down for me from what you've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's simple for me. I think whoever's offensive line plays the best is going to win this
Mhm.
football game. And Miami has guys hanging after the quarterback. You mentioned Ruben Bain, but his sack production kind of reminds me of Shamar Stewart, where it wasn't. It's not the best numbers ever, but he's really
Right, yeah.
productive. He creates pressures. He gets after the quarterback. He plays with a high motor, and that's really impressive. So A&M's offensive line is a Joe Moore Award, nominee group. I think they're up
Mhm.
to the challenge. They have a veteran group here, so I expect them to come out there and play tough. But on the other side of the ball, Miami has a really good offensive line as well, and Cassius Howell is obviously the big dog on campus there, and you're gonna need a big game from him. But I tweeted it out earlier. Uh, I think the interior is going to have a big game. Tyler Onyedum, DJ Hicks,
Mhm.
Albert Regis, those guys are the people that are going to have to get in Carson Beck's lap, find a way to get him uncomfortable, like you mentioned. If he's playing around, if they're around his feet, he can't really step into throws. He kind of gets a little dicey. He makes some questionable decisions, and more so than pressure on the edge, pressure in your face is what something that's going to really hinder Carson Beck.
And I think people love to joke about the ACC and the maybe lack of talent that they have in that conference compared to the SEC at least. But Miami, I think we tend to forget beginning of the season was arguably unbeatable. I think there were a ton of people who looked at Miami and thought this team is going to win a national championship this year. And they had a bit of a slump with Louisville and SMU. And we saw Carson Beck kind of play to his floor level of football. And right now they are on a much hotter streak. I think they average around 19 points per game, or their defense allows around 19 points per game. So it really does come down to what our offense is able to do. And with the way that we've seen our team play, we've played pretty much every style of football. We saw the Notre Dame game, and then we went to the Auburn game, and then we saw Arkansas, and then we saw LSU. Like there's pretty much every single level of football that you can play. We found a way to play and win. And a big question that isn't necessarily an X and an O is momentum because we're coming off a loss. They're coming off a win, even though neither of us played in our conference championship. There is a bit of a different mentality. So, where do you see just the non football related side of things? What do both of these teams kind of have in their mind going into this game? And how do you carry that kind of chip on your shoulder?
Yeah, I think you talked about it, carrying that chip on your shoulder. I think Mike Elko is a really good motivator. I think he's somebody who understands how to tap into the mind of what to say to his team, right? Losing to Texas, nobody's happy about that. Nobody in that locker room was in a good mood, and it stung for a while, I'm sure. But getting a chance to kind of resurrect that and fix that by playing this game and trying to find a way to win this game in Kyle Field is something that can easily flip the switch and get back and play football. So you don't want to learn lessons in defeat. I'm a big big proponent of that, saying, you want to learn lessons in victory, but if you're going to
Mhm.
lose and you're going to get punched in the mouth, how do you respond to that? And I think A&M is ready to respond in the right way. I think they've had a few weeks to stew on it. The health factor, like we talk about them getting healthy, but just the tangible stuff, them just kind of tightening up, understanding that, hey, if we don't play our best football, we can get beat. That mentality of understanding that they got to go out there and play their best ball, I think they're going to be ready to rock.
Well, I was talking about in when I was previewing this game, just reminiscing on the season as a whole. And for people who don't pay close attention to A&M football, Le'Veon Moss is not a super common household name just because of his injuries, and he hasn't been able to stay healthy, which is really unfortunate because when he is at his best, he is arguably one of the best running backs in the nation. And because of that, we've seen our offense shift a lot. At the beginning of the season, it was very much open the run game so that way we can establish the passing game. And now I feel like it's flipped. So, talk to me a little bit about how you've seen our offense change. I know we have Colin Klein kind of not one foot out the door, but just the way that the offense is going to be run is going to change a bit just because of coaching things and the way the calendar works out. But just talk to me about what you've seen this offense do throughout the season and how you expect it to look coming into Miami.
Yeah, I think when this offseason started, I think there was a lot of questions about what Marcel Reed was going to be as the passer, right? A lot of people felt you're going to lean on this veteran offensive line, you're going to lean on these four returning running backs, and they're going to be a ground and pound team. You bring in a Mario Craver, you bring in a Casey Concepcion, and now this is a team that can attack you in multiple different ways. So that's been the most impressive part, is the ability to do whatever they had to do and let a game dictate how they attack you, right? You're trying to take the run game away, they're able to be in the air and vice versa. But without Le'Veon Moss, the running game suffered a little bit, right? They're still a top 25 rushing team and they're still able to run the football, and that's impressive because of the pieces they have. Adding Moss into the equation puts this team in a different tier as a runner of the
Mhm.
football, right? Simply put, he, like you mentioned, he's kind of underrated. He's somebody who can make a lot of plays. He changes the complexion of this offense in a completely different way. Now, you got Ruben Owens, who's your number two. He's fresher. You got Le'Veon Moss, who is a short yardage guy who can hit the home run. And I expect that to be the case, right? I think that, obviously Miami is really good at stopping the run. I believe they're sixth in the country at stopping the run, but
Mhm.
this is a different rushing attack than they've probably faced all season, especially with a healthy and motivated and fresh Le'Veon Moss. So, in a long roundabout way to say it, this is an offense that can beat you in many, many different ways.
Yep. And I see some Texas people in the comments, so I might put salt in our own wound. And you talked about how it's not ideal to learn from defeat, you'd rather learn from victory. But unfortunately, that was the situation we were in a couple weeks ago. You come out of Austin with a loss, and they've just been sitting with it, and it's been festering. And the only way to remedy that is to win this weekend. So, what if I didn't really want to reflect on this game, but it's come up, so I'm going to do it. If there are a couple of things that you're in the locker room, you're taking away from that game, what can we not do in this Miami game that we did against Texas? What are some things that stick out to you?
I think it's just not hurting yourself, right? Because if you look at the way that game went, A&M was playing well in the first half, and Texas
Mhm.
came out cleaner, more motivated with a better plan in the second half, and it cost them the game. There's two moments that stood out to me, right? You had a third down and two, had a chance at midfield to kind of convert and continue the drive. Marcel Reed takes a deep shot and misses the wide receiver out on the outside. The second one is fourth and one, same thing, middle of the field. They get a false start. Now it's fourth and six, and you got a punt. The problem is Texas scored on both of those next possessions and kind of separated from A&M, and they were never able to recover. It's simply going to be about, can you protect the football? Can you not hurt yourself? And if you do that, this offense has proven to be potent enough. This defense has shown you the ability to be strong. As long as they don't hurt themselves, they can compete and beat anybody in the country, and that's just the fact of the matter.
Mhm. And I there's a lot of circumstances. You win that game, you go to the SEC championship. What does that mean for you? Okay, you have one, maybe you get a bye going into the playoffs, but then you got some guys banged up. So I'm going to sit with the fact that it worked out the way it was supposed to. No one wants to come out of that with a loss to Texas, but the only thing you can do is use it as motivation. So coming into Miami, you have a lot to reflect on the season. What do you think are a couple non-negotiables? If you if I ask you the same question Saturday night, you're looking back on the game, what are some things that had to have happened for us to have a win?
Yeah, I kind of touched on it. I'm going to lean on it again. No, like very minimal in the mistakes, right? Don't turn the
Mhm.
football over. Don't give them possessions. We talked about Carson Beck being somebody who can, turn the football over, and he's been known to do that. Let him make those mistakes. Don't make the mistakes for him, right? And just trying to find a way to stay within yourself. This is the type of game that's going to invoke a lot of emotion. It's going to bring a lot of energy. You got to be able to ride the wave. Don't get ahead of yourself. If this team goes out there and just plays the way that they've played for 9.5 out of the 11 games or 12 games, they're going to be fine, right? They're going to be fine. This is the team they can beat, and you respect your opponent and understand that Miami can beat you as well. But they've, A&M has proven that when they're on top of their game, they can compete with anybody.
And your biggest point that you keep reflecting on is A&M just being very prone to shooting ourselves in the foot, kind of making our own mistakes. Both of these teams are pretty penalty prone, which again, this is not a football related issue. This is just a non measurable, but having a home playoff game, how much do you think that is going to account for the result of this game?
It's huge. It's huge, right? Like this is why you want a home playoff game. It's to be able to control the environment, to be in a friendly confine of and make that situation tough on them. Now, A&M is not great when it comes to penalties. They're like 115th in the country, but Miami's 123rd, right? So they're even worse in that category. Now you add 110,000 plus fans screaming, yelling, fired up for the first college football playoff game, and that is a factor. Like, I think people have to understand that. I'm not saying it's going to be the deciding factor. I'm not going to say it's going to be this huge thing, but having the fans on your side in that environment, especially a team that struggles with discipline, it can be a factor. And that's the why, finding yourself in a situation to host a home playoff game, it's so valuable, especially for like a team and a program like A&M.
Well, and A&M led by Mike Elko, it's his second year at A&M. We can sit here and break down the film all we want. But I think something that we don't touch on a lot is the coaching aspect of both sides of the ball. So kind of break down where if you think either team has the edge coaching wise. I know Mario Cristobal has, especially last year, was a bit of a controversial in-game coach. So kind of break down what you think both of these programs look like and how having both of these guys at the helm is going to change the outcome of this game.
Yeah, you kind of touched on it. I think Mario Cristobal, even though his resume has national championship on it and he's been a part of winning staffs, his in-game coaching has been questioned, right? There have been moments where you say, "Hey, in situational football, is he going to make the right decision?" And so that is real until it isn't, right? You gotta figure that out. You gotta get that off of people to start thinking about you in that light. Now, when you look at Mike Elko, this is a guy who still he's got to prove it as a head coach, right? There's a lot of belief that he's got these guys in the right manner and he's going to put them in the right position. But and this is how you change legacies. If Michael goes out and wins this game and A&M continues to go on, then you start talking about him in a different conversation. But I trust the staff. I really do think A&M has a great staff. I know Jay Bateman's on his way out, Colin Klein's on their way out, but those are guys who have used their weapons and their pieces and built their team around that and not vice versa. And I think that's the sign of a good coach. Colin Klein knew what he had in Marcel Reed, knew what he needed to bring in the transfer portal to make them as efficient as possible. And now they've gone out there and have one of the high octane offenses in the country. So I like A&M staff. I like what they've been able to do. And this is a talented team that I expect to continue in that trajectory.
Yeah, and there are a lot of staff changes, which again, just because of the way the calendar is set up, it's just going to be a mess no matter how you shape it. We all knew Colin Klein was going to find his way out the door as soon as that Kansas State job opened up, and for him to be able to take that job means he did a great job at A&M. So I have no ill will towards him. But I was talking about this with my dad earlier today. Is we're sitting at 11-1 hosting a playoff game, and I think a lot of people are left with a weird taste in their mouth because of that Texas game. But if you would have told people where we're sitting right now back in early August, I think no one would have believed you. So, what, just based on the outcome of this game, what this game means to this program, win or lose, like what are you already satisfied with the season? Or would you call the season a success? Does Mike Elko have to win a playoff game for it to be a success? Like, what does his tenure right now look like, and what is going to determine what his future here holds?
I think when you look at it as a whole, it's hard not to look at this season as a success in a vacuum, right? To go from 8-5 to 11-1, just full stop. That's improvement, right? That's progress. So you actually have tangible progress to look at. Now, I thought I was one of the more optimistic people in the media. I had them going 10-2, and they kind of they did more than what I thought they were going to do, right? So you take that, but now you're in a situation where you can elevate it. Now you're at a spot where this program can do things they've never done before. So yes, while you look at this season and say there are things to be excited about, you don't want to squander the opportunity that's in front of you. So yeah, I think when you look at it, if the conversation is a loss here and they end up 11-2 and and your only losses of the season are the final two, it's gonna sting and people are gonna talk about it and it's gonna be discussed in a negative light. But go ahead and change the narrative, find a way to win this game, get to the quarterfinal in Arlington against Ohio State. And I think the national narrative around this program will change quite drastically, honestly.
Well, you hit the nail on the head because, as we know on Twitter, it's very much everyone just talking into a vacuum right now. We've had 2, 3 weeks where our team, Miami, neither team has played football, so all you can do is talk back and forth. And all these other fan bases are thrown in the mix too. And you can talk all you want on Twitter, but the only way to really prove that your program is headed the right direction, especially since our schedule was a big talking point this year and what teams we did or didn't draw, like you said, the only way to actually prove something is to come out of Saturday with a win. So, with that being said, we know the spread is 3.5, which is essentially a pick 'em since the edge codes to us because it's a home game. It's over under, I think, 51.5. So, I kind of want to hear what you kind of expect the script to look like: high scoring, low scoring, somewhere in between, your score predictions, who you expect to come out of this game with a win. Kind of give me all your rundowns there.
Yeah, I've been pretty consistent in thinking that the 12th man, the Kyle Field is going to be a factor. I told you that a couple of minutes ago. I really do
Mhm.
think that's going to be a factor. If these two teams are going to stay and be who they are, which is, they're prone to making some penalties, they're prone to some turnovers. If that's the case, and we just see a little bit of back and forth, it's going to be the cleaner team that wins. It's going to be the more comfortable team that wins. And if you're at home, I think that is A&M's favor, obviously. I think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring than A&M's typical, but not by much. I think they find a way to win 27-24. I can't lie. I'm a little nervous about the kicking game. I think that's been a problem all year for them. But I do think that A&M finds a way to squeak one out. And I think the conversation around them changes. Like I said, find a way to win this game. And I think everybody starts to look at A&M just a little bit differently.
Is there a point in the game, let's say we're going into halftime, down a certain amount of points, whatever it may be, is there going to be a point in the game where where you might feel concerned? Or is it just going to be you wait until the clock hits zero before you really decide what's going on?
I think it's early on, right? You got to think the A&M will probably have to bring the fight to them at home, energy fired up. I think they got to find a way to either score points in the first drive or get a 3-and-out or get a stop, right? I think the motion is going to be on A&M side early in the
Mhm.
game. Finding a way to, when that calms down and Miami finds some rhythm offensively or makes a stop defensively, to kind of get over that, because Miami's not going to go down without a fight, right? Like Miami, it may be the second quarter and maybe the third quarter. If A&M is going to win this football game, they're going to have to weather some type of storm. And this is what Mike Elko's preached all season long. Finish, right? We talked to these guys in Atlanta at the SEC Media Day. Willie talked about finish. Reed Adams talked about finish. If they're going to live to that mantra, they got to find a way to weather that storm and finish on Saturday.
Well, and that's funny because I was just about to ask you, what do you kind of see as the difference between starting fast and starting strong? Because on Tuesday I asked people what they were concerned about, and a lot of people said they want to see A&M start fast. But in my opinion, I feel like that just hasn't been our MO all season. We're not a team that comes out of the gate and is just going to run it up your throat. Like, it's going to be a slow, as Mike Elko said, kind of beat you to death with hammers type of game. So kind of break down what that difference is, and then, like you said, our mentality is finish, not start. So kind of how that all plays into each other.
Yeah, I look at the Florida game, right? Starting slow is, Florida scoring on their opening drive, right? But then starting fast is A&M scoring on 2 plays in the same, game. So yeah, it's just one of those things where you got to try to find a win and find a way to ride the emotion and ride the wave
Mhm.
of just the energy that's in that building. This is a team that can beat you in so many different ways, because I think we've seen them come out and attack teams, and we have seen them kind of struggle early on. And then you find ways that they go and beat the brakes off of Mississippi State, or they go and play soundly against Missouri. It just, there's different ways that they can win. in this game, the margins and the room for error is so small, right? I think they got to find a way to play their best without playing tight, because the team that's the loosest, the team that's the most confident is going to win this football game. And the way Elko preaches it, the way they coach it and talk about it all season, they got to continue to be that and be who they are.
And we've watched this team all season. I'm sure plenty of people watching right now have done the same. But I bet there are some people out there who have only really box score watched A&M or box score watched Miami. And this game on Saturday, because it's the playoffs and there's only so many football games, might be the first full game they've watched of both of these teams. So, as someone who has avidly watched all season, what would be a couple things you would tell them to look out for just to get a full grasp of what they're really getting into?
Yeah, I think when you got to look at just, I think Colin Klein's feel for the game, right? Sometimes you'll see Marcel take a lot of deep shots, or maybe he'll take some tight window throws that you say, why did he try to fit that in there? And I think it's Colin Klein saying, hey, like, let's calm down. Let's get the football in space to our playmakers. You'll see screens to KC. You'll see quick hitters to Mario. Just that's the coach reeling in Marcel when he's trying to, get it all back in one play. I think that's something that's really fascinating. Defensively, we've talked about it all season. Mike Elko talks about winning on first and second down, so they earn the right to be exotic on third. To find a way to get teams at the 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, and just come after them with Cassius, come after them with Dayon Hayes, and just find a ways to get crazy. So if that's what you're looking for, to try to figure out what does A&M football look like, it's unconventional ways to attack teams on third downs, and it's just Colin Klein's feel for football and calling the right plays. I've been a fan of his all season. There have been some questionable calls. I think people talk about it all year, but for a large part of the season, I really do feel like Colin's called a really, really good football game.
Well, and on the opposing side of the ball, this is one of the most fun matchups for me to look at just because, like you talked about, how important third down is. We have the best third down defense in the country, and that is because we've set ourselves up on first and second down to have that privilege to be able to have people back there in the backfield, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9, which is exactly where we want to put Carson Beck because we know how he folds under pressure. But on the flip side of the ball, like you said, Miami is top 15 nationally in 4 different categories on their defense. I mean, this is probably the best pass rush and run defense we're going to face all year. Maybe if we were to play Oklahoma or something like that, that might be the only other option we have. But I think defensively, like you said, this is why offensive line is so important. And people who casually watch football aren't watching the offensive line. They aren't watching what's happening in the trenches because that's not where the fun is. But just our line and their D line, and you flip it, like that's where the big names are that are being covered in the media, and that's where it's going to make the biggest difference because, like we said, these quarterbacks are very volatile. You can get an A+ Marcel Reed, you can get a F-. I mean, we've seen both sides of Marcel in that South Carolina game. That was pretty much, I don't want to say his ceiling or his floor, but as close as you can get, I think, on both sides of the ball. And we saw Carson Beck do the same thing against Louisville and SMU, but then he's been on a hot streak with Virginia Tech. So, I mean, there's so many factors that go into this game that are really you can't account for until you step into Kyle Field at 11 a.m. and kind of just see, you spot the ball and see what happens. But is there anything else that we might not have covered that you think might be important to just look for on Saturday, kind of just to ease some worries that people might be have any last minute concerns?
Yeah, I think the to ease some things is you talked about Marcel, and I'm glad you brought it up because it reminded me of, this game, there is no tomorrow, right? So there's no holding anything back. There is no, fighting to see another day. You got to win to advance, and that goes without saying. But I say that to say Marcel Reed has been smart about his body. He's been smart about running. He's been smart about, not taking big hits. This is a game where you might just see Marcel just do his thing, right? It might be, you might go in because if what's the point of being healthy if you're not going to play next week? So my thing is he might get out, he might try to run the football a little bit more, he might try to be a little more creative, a little more athletic with the football, because that is exactly what you got to do in these moments. I think Colin Klein's play calling is going to be aggressive in nature because, like you said, there is no tomorrow. Defense is going to have to be sound. I just think these games, you're either going to tighten up or you're going to loosen up and play your best ball. And I see these players. There's a lot of alphas on A&M's football team. I expect them to rise when the moment's the biggest because they've done it before. And I just think that's what you're going to expect to see in this game because there is no tomorrow. There's nothing to leave there empty. You got to empty the take and go try to find a way to win.
Well, and to your point too, I think this could be accounted for in that Texas game when Marcel went down and he comes back on the field. Of course, that's partly a mentality thing. I think he knew he did not want to sit out the rest of that game, but part of him probably was, even if it was unconscious. Like, I know that I'm going to be in the playoffs. I know I have a team that I want to lead to a national championship. I can't just be putting my body on the line in the regular season and then you go down and that's the end of it. So with this every single game essentially being sudden death, I think we're going to see a bit of a different version of Marcel. I know because people do have recency bias. They watch South Carolina, they watch Texas. He's been a big name just because we gave a big Heisman campaign for him, and then he kind of didn't play to his full potential those last couple games. So I would love to see a different version of Marcel that's on the positive side. Who knows what that looks like? But we know how big of a competitor Marcel is. And I think that's been a big culture shift too, and just how much this team wants to win, especially coming off that 4 game losing streak last year. Not streak, but just the way that the tumble that kind of happened after LSU. So I kind of want to hear a little bit because you get to talk, you're in the media, you get to talk to guys all around the program, guys that are inside that locker room, inside that building. Like, what is the culture shift that you've seen? Again, this is not a football thing. This is more of a non-measurable, but just culture-wise, and why is Mike Elko here in year 2, you know?
Yeah, it's a tough group, right? It's a group that understands, like, they're not really about the BS, to be honest with you. When we talk to these guys and we try to get them to not say anything bad, but to try to give us like a real answer on questions, they're very stern and are very disciplined in what they want to say. Like the mantra, like I mentioned earlier, is finish, and they're very confident. So when you get a guy like Trey Zune, who is naturally a reserve guy, but when he's confident, he has no problems talking about like the other defensive linemen because he
Mhm,
believes in his group. He believes in the way he plays. I asked Demetrius Crownover about Trey Zune's comment, and as I was asking the question, you can see the smile crack on his face, and just kind of they stood on it, right? They stood on it.
mhm.
They could have talked about it and said, hey, we're just we respect every opponent, and they do, but they stand on business because they believe it. They they work hard. They have a coach who believes in it and lets them be themselves. And I think they understand getting into this game, like there is no reason to hold back anything to not be organically themselves. And to your point about the regular season injuries, I don't know if anybody put two and two together here, but look at the way they handled Scooby Williams. Look at the way they
Mhm.
handled Bryce Anderson. These guys didn't play at all in the last like month of the regular season,
Yeah.
but now neither one of them are on the injury report for the playoff games. It tells you exactly what their mind was at, right? The regular
Mhm.
season is important, it matters, but this is what it's all about. They were getting guys ready to go for now. This is it. Le'Veon Moss probably could have played against Texas. He maybe could have. It would have been close. But now for certain he looks like he may be ready to play in this game. They knew what's important. They knew even though that's a rivalry, this is the game they want to win. This is the game that matters the most.
Well, when you're around these guys all the time, and a big part of your job is obviously being in the media and being online. And again, like we've said, it's a lot of talking right now. We haven't played the game yet, so all you can do is talk online. And I think a big narrative from the Miami side of the ball is all of these comments that these guys are making. I mean, they're calling it bulletin board material. So where is your kind of mentality on that? You kind of touched on it, of the difference between cockiness and confidence and how one side of the ball views it versus the other. But how would you interpret these comments? I understand from my Miami point of view, they're calling it bulletin board material. But I mean, if you need bulletin board material to win a playoff game, are you even supposed to be there in the first place? So kind of what is your mentality if you had to take kind of an objective stance?
Yeah, I mean, you said it exactly right. There is no bulletin board material in the playoff game. Like, there's nothing that I can say, you can say, anybody can say that should make you want to win more, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. It's fan fodder. We can speak about it. The media can talk about it. It's great. It's good content. But ultimately, would you expect Trey Zune to feel anything less? Would you expect Ruben Bain to feel anything less? These guys are going to go out there and they're going to be, gladiators of sports for 60 minutes, and they're going to go at each other toe for toe, and whoever wins is going to come out on top with the victory. And that's just the fact of the matter. So I like it. I think that if you don't believe that, if you don't have that, you probably don't reach this level, right? You're probably not in the CFP. You're probably not an SEC or an ACC football player. If you don't have that type of swagger, you just wouldn't be in this arena. So it's great, it's fun, but ultimately bulletin board material is a media fan thing to talk about, in my opinion.
Yeah. And it's been all fun and games again because we haven't had football to watch and there's not really been any X's and O's to compare. It's just two fan bases going at it on social media, which has been a lot of fun. And I have a lot of bookmarks, as I'm sure Miami fans do too. And I'm hoping to use those in a positive way come Saturday. But who knows? I'm not playing the game. I just have to anxiously sit there and watch. But I think my final question for you, this is our very first home playoff game. We haven't been in this position before, which people love to say, act like you've been there. But I think part of it is, relish in the fact that you haven't been there before. Like, enjoy the fact that you're the program that has taken this team to its very first playoff game. So, kind of, what do you expect the atmosphere to look like? Do you expect things to look different than a regular home game? Like, just from the fan perspective, players, coaches, media, like all of the above, and just the way that outside perspectives are talking about us? Like, how do you all expect it to look come Saturday morning?
I think it's gonna be the best environment Kyle Field has had in God knows how long, right? I really do believe the fans are going to be ready. I went on Louis Bellina's show in College Station. I've talked to everybody I could speak to. I'm expecting the best atmosphere I could possibly imagine, and I think they've earned the right to act like how they want to act. You said, be there and act like you've been there. Who cares what anybody says, right? This, who knows how many opportunities you're going to get at this, right? Maybe, hopefully, for A&M fans, it's every year, it's an annual thing, but right now it's your only one. So treat it as such. Go in there, get early, be hydrated, if you get what I'm saying, and do your thing. And I just think that's, you got to embrace it, right? Because you love the sport, you love this team, you love this program. You have a chance to impact it. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Just, I'm expecting the best Kyle Field has got. And honestly, as somebody who just loves football and gets to be, and very blessed to be in the situation I am to go in there, I'm expecting to sit back and just try to enjoy it just like anybody else, because it's going to be unique.
Well, and we've talked about this just throughout the season, but really hammered in on it tonight is we haven't been here before, and that's okay. And I think because of that, you should not let yourself be anxious because the game's going to play out how it plays out. Me and you, we have no control whatsoever in what happens on that field. I mean, I'm going to be in Kyle Field. I can yell as loud as I want, but at the end of the day, that is not going to really be what makes or breaks what that scoreboard says after 60 minutes. So, to anyone who is still feeling that BAS, who's feeling anxious, I would just encourage you to try to shove it as far away as you can because these things, at least up until this point, haven't come around all that often for us. And the result's going to be the result. So just enjoy it as much as you can. You're going to be on the media side of things, so you'll get to have your own kind of perspective of how this looks. But like, I would totally attest what you said, that this is going to be the best that Kyle Field has ever looked. I heard some rumors that the Pat McAfee little kicking competition might be on Kyle Field. So we might have to just steal that guy if he happens to make the kick and sign him to our roster because we're kind of running out of options here. But again, I am anxiously awaiting Saturday morning. We have a football game to watch tomorrow night before ours, so we can kind of see how that one plays out and then go from there. But thank you for joining me. I admire all the work that you do. Thank you for doing all your film study. I know you had one kind of go a little viral this week and had some Miami fans in your mentions, which is all fun and good. So kind of tell the people, I know you're big on Twitter, but tell them just where you are on Twitter, where they can find you outside of that, where they can read your work.
Yeah, first off, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Like, anytime I can talk football, especially when it's a big game like this, I love being able to get the chance to do that. So thank you for that. You can find me on X at Tony_Catalina, and you can find all my work at thestatesman.com. So, and my podcast is Behind Enemy Lines because I cover A&M for the rival paper. So I don't know. It's just a play on name there, but I do appreciate Avery. Thank you.
You're doing good work, and we will all be in the same place on Saturday morning at 11 a.m. rooting for the same people. And I hope I can see you again Saturday night and say that we came out of it with a win. But no matter the result, it's been an incredible season. I will look back on this very fondly for years to come. So thank you for hopping on tonight and breaking down some football with me. But until then, beat the hell out of Miami and best of luck to the Ags out there. So